Alrighty. Well, I didn't know a lot about Tim Flattery before we started the show. Uh, I'm a big fan of the guy now. It was a super fun episode and really cool to get to know him a little bit better and hear some of the inside stories, which you had known a little bit more. You'd been following for a little bit.
Yeah, I've been listening to this podcast for about half a year now. Familiar with his name because of high school. He's just one of those guys you could talk to all night long.
Totally. He
We're
just
gonna have
has,
that.
he seems like he's excited about a lot of stuff. And those are the best guys to talk to because the little things are important to them. And they just have better stories and better takes on everything, I feel like.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited about this episode. I think there's a lot of good content that comes out throughout this episode. So you want to make sure you want to listen to the entire episode. There's bits and pieces, good, relatable stuff about Iowa culture and just all around. He's just a very energetic and positive dude. I enjoyed his presence.
Sounds good. Before we go, I do want to say a quick thank you to Cookies Barbecue and let everyone know that these are the sauces that America loves to eat. Seasonings, sauces can be found on cookiesbarbecue.com and obviously at your local grocery store. Remember, smart cookies choose cookies. Let's get into this episode, guys. This is a fun one. What's up, guys? We're back. Hope you guys enjoyed the Luca Garza episode. We've got an awesome guest this week, Tim Flattery. It sounds like Nate, you know a little bit more about this Tim character than I do. It sounds like he's born and raised in the northwest, north central part of the state. Super pumped. He's got a podcast of his own, the Moonlight Graham podcast. Is that correct?
That's right. The Moonlight Graham Show, Bryce.
Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for having me. This is fun, fellas. I see he's already got the beers out. So I'm going to crack one myself, if that's okay.
That's right. We love it. So that right here.
One of the worst pours of my life right here.
Cheers, fellas.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah. Tim and I had a hell of a summer this year. I listened to him almost every single day at work. I discovered him through my brother-in-law. Tim, before we I'm going to start off with a spicy question to get this podcast going. Who would win in a game of one-on-one basketball? You or Scott Stentz?
Oh, I'm beating Scott all day long. Yeah, Scott Stentz was my high school rival from Algona Garrigan. He and I were both point guards. I'm actually still in touch with Scott today. He lives up in the Minneapolis area, and we grab beers together whenever I'm up in Minneapolis. But there's no doubt in my mind I'm beating Scott Stentz by 2-3. If it's make it, take it. It could get ugly. But, if it's just every other, I'm going to beat him by 2-3, no doubt.
That's cool. Yeah, I was listening to one of your podcasts once. I think it was Coach K, and you guys were talking about playing Garrigan because Garrigan was stacked here in the area with Scott Stentz, Arndorfer, Shillington. That was my sister's grade. She graduated with them, so very familiar with them. And you talked about, I think Coach K mentioned how a point guard from the other opposing team was cocking off or doing something like that was Scott Stentz. You is on the top of your mind. It's like,
well, I'll never forget it. So my senior year of high school, Nate, Garrigan was ranked like 1 or 2 all year. We were ranked 2 or 3 all year. PCM with Brandon Myers, who played 10 years in the NFL. They were ranked number 1. And then it was Garrigan and St. Ed's right behind them all regular season. We go up to Garrigan, place is packed, and they beat us in a close one. And Scott Stentz is doing this to the student section during the last timeout. And I remember I took the guys aside and was like, don't forget this moment right now when they come to our place later in the year. And sure enough, when Garrigan came to St. Ed's, it was packed for the JV girls game at like 4 p.m. Really great game. We ended up beating by, I don't know, maybe 8 points or so. And so it was good to get that last one over Garrigan. But yeah, Scott's a great guy, friends with all those guys at Algona, but it's always also good to beat them.
Yeah, no, I remember that. So I think after that game, St. Ed's went almost a 10-year winning streak against Garrigan. Until my senior year, it was our last game in the North Central Conference. We beat St. Ed's at St. Ed's.
What's up with you guys leaving the North Central Conference?
I don't know. At least through my entire high school career, we got to play in the North Central Conference, so I'm happy about that. I'm not happy where they are nowadays. It's like the top of the Iowa Conference. Stupid, weaker competition because I like playing in North Central because we were the underdogs. Kind of, I would only won at school, maybe Eagle Grove some years, but it prepared us for the tournament. I thought well, anyways.
Yeah.
All right. Well, getting into a little bit of what you're saying as we're going to move on here. you have one of the most iconic names in North Central Iowa, Flattery. I mean, I swear to God, you guys produce like bunny rabbits. No matter what year, what team, what sport, there was at least 3 Flatteries out in the court. What?
It's one of those things where, so many people nowadays, they might grow up in a certain town and then move away. Like I don't live in Fort Dodge anymore, but my dad and 2 of his brothers moved back to Fort Dodge, had kids there. We had a bunch of boys from that all graduated from 2003 to 2020. I have a cousin this year that's going to be graduating. And there's probably been 20 of my cousins and siblings over the past 20 years. And at times there's 4 or 5 of them at one time. You said the word iconic. I wouldn't go that far. None of us have been that great of athletes, but there's just been a lot of us, right? There's just been a lot. And so the name rings a bell quite a bit, just because you know how it is when you're at a small school and you have a bunch of pretty good athletes that play all the sports. You can win a lot of games. You can have some success. And that's kind of what's happened at St. Ed's with the Flatteries.
Definitely. Well, you guys are very iconic in Garrigan's eyes, especially if we're going to tenure route to you. So you found your love for baseball. You follow St. Ed's and you go to play for Iowa Central for 2 years.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you walk on at Northern Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
How does that happen? Rick Keller was the coach. Did you get the call? Tell me about that process.
Yeah. So, coming out of high school, I was all ready to go to Iowa State, actually. And I wasn't going to play sports in college at all. I'm 5'11", had a knee injury in high school that kind of slowed down some of my recruiting. So I never really got recruited all that heavily until late in my senior year. A bunch of D2 basketball schools were calling and Division III football. But then I had a really good baseball season my senior year. And all of a sudden, we play baseball in the summer and I'm, haven't lost in a while. I think I was 12-1 and it was man, I want to keep playing. I'm getting way better. I was finally healthy. And so about July after my senior year, I had already gone to orientation at Iowa State and then just called up the coach at Iowa Central and was like, hey, I want to keep playing. You're in Fort Dodge. They knew who I was. I knew who they were. And so they let me walk on. Ended up having a pretty good 2 years there, earned a scholarship at Iowa Central, and then was in a similar boat coming out of Iowa Central. A lot of Division IIs, a lot of small Division Is, on the coast down in Florida. South Carolina wanted me, but I didn't want to go that far away from home. So I was looking at Creighton, Iowa, UNI, Nebraska as places to walk on. And I looked at the roster at UNI and I saw a bunch of guys that I knew and had played with before and thought, you know what, I think I could go there and potentially earn a scholarship. So I called up Heller, and Heller had came up and watched me throw a couple of times. And he said, basically, hey, there's a walk-on spot if you want to come play here. We don't have any scholarship money at this time, but you're open to come and walk on. So, and I'm all about that. It was never about scholarship money with me. I just wanted a chance to play.
Yeah, earn your position. And
on at UNI and got put on scholarship there after my first semester. And I always liked that, betting on myself, right? Betting that they haven't seen all of me yet. And once I get in the door, I can prove that I'm one of the best guys here and I can earn my scholarship. And so I'm proud that I did it that way instead of just chasing a scholarship, ending up in South Carolina, playing for a team that you've never heard of and getting my butt kicked by Florida and Florida State for 2 years. Instead, I was able to stay close to home, still connected to all the guys, still love Coach Heller and all that staff. A bunch of them are at Iowa now. So, that's the story.
So Nate knows your background a little bit better than I do. And it sounds like you were a pitcher.
Pitcher. Yep.
Gotcha. And that goes on to what kind of career after college?
Yeah. Not a very good one, Bryce. But one of my goals growing up was I wanted to play professional baseball. I wanted to have a baseball card. So when you get to the Division I level and you're like, can I compete at this level? And then I found out I could compete at that level. And then I was like, okay, I had a really good senior year. I had a couple of scouts talking to me. I didn't think I was going to get drafted, but I wanted to keep playing. So I had a couple of tryouts and got picked up at a tryout for an independent league team in the Frontier League out of Rockford, Illinois. The Rockford Riverhawks is what we were called. And I had a tryout, signed a contract the next day. and basically spent that summer playing minor league baseball in the Frontier League on buses, basically Illinois to Wisconsin to Kentucky, all throughout the Midwest. And it was a blast. But then essentially, I still had one semester left of school. So I got a baseball card. I played minor league baseball. I didn't think I was going to make the major league. So I'm like, I got to graduate and get moving on with my life.
Sure. So is that, if you don't mind me asking, is that payment enough to basically get your bus ticket, or is that something where it's like, hey, I can actually like do this for a few years and you scrounge up some bucks?
I was making $800 a month.
Solid.
And I was living with a host family. So there was no rent. I was living like in a basement and getting paid $800 a month, signing every autograph that I could. Basically I was the first guy out after BP, all these little kids, and I would sign every autograph just because I loved like being a baseball player,
Right.
And I lived it up. Like we had a blast. It was so much fun. A couple of the guys I played with ended up actually making the major leagues. So
Cool.
you have some of those stories. I had some actually really good outings. Like I pitched really well. I had some really bad outings, but I had some really good ones as well. So I got some stories, and I feel like I didn't want to hang on for another year or two. You don't make any money.
Sure.
I didn't want to be a hanger on. I wanted to just get on with my life after I kind of did it a little bit.
Sure thing.
All right. We want to go back to your college days because Bryce and I are both Northern Iowa grads. So we have a room full of Northern Iowa grads here.
Gotcha.
Yeah. What are some of your good experiences there? Maybe starting off with, what was your favorite bar?
Oh, good question, man. I loved happy hour. What is it called? FAC at Suds.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that was a thing when you guys were there.
You bet it was.
Yeah, Suds and actually Mojo's back in the day. I don't know what Mojo's is called now, but it was like.
That's what's fun about Suds is like my parents went to UNI and they still remembered Suds. So, there's not a lot of those left. Suds is one that you can, generationally everyone kind of remembers.
Was Ginger's there while you were there?
So Ginger's was Mojo's. That's what it's called.
Gotcha.
Well,
yeah. So we would do like FAC would go Mojo's to Suds was kind of what we did on Fridays. Sharkies on specific nights, like you knew when it was going to be a Shark Tank type of night. And so those were always fun, but you don't do that every weekend for sure.
Nate's going to be humble in this podcast, but he's like the all-time costume runner-up at Sharky's for Halloween.
The Sharkies Halloween costume contest party, that Thursday of the final week of October every year. 3 years in a row, runner-up.
Couldn't bring home the trophy, but he was always in the running.
What were the costumes?
Reno 911, my first year. Some of the shortest shorts ever. It was a great costume. Second year, we were a bunch of monkeys, and then we had a full jungle team. My third year, which I thought was my best, was my Prince. I got so mad that so what happens is they go throughout the crowd and they pick like 3 or 4 costumes that the employees think are great, and then they'll bring them in the middle of the Sharkies dance floor. They'll shut all the music off. They'll have everyone surround the stage. Like, we're gonna announce this person's costume and you're gonna cheer, and then they select the winner by the loudest crowd, right? That's how they did the 2 previous years. But the third year, when I was I had this in the bag. My entire posse was there. Everybody knew this is my big week. They didn't do the crowd selection. They just gave it to who the employees saw. So they had like 3 or 4 people pick it, and I got second again. So I got pissed. I went on.
I feel like every Halloween the winner should be a girl, right? The winner should be.
That was my first 2 years. Just 2 hot girls.
I would never vote for a guy. If I was in that bar, I'm not cheering for the guy. I'm just going to cheer for the girl.
You're not wrong. At a chance.
Yeah, you're not wrong. That's exactly what happened the first 2 years. 2 groups of chicks who were just hot won it. Not the best costume, but a short, slutty costume. They won it. So I got pissed. I didn't win it the third year because I thought I had it in the bag. I had this guitar. I smashed it on my knee in front of everybody.
You didn't last much longer in that bar.
Nope, I got out, but I snuck right back in, but I got kicked out again though.
I tell you what, you bring up Halloween. So I was in college, like at the start of Facebook, like Facebook was still kind of new. And we would still make like party invites to like a Halloween party at this house. And when I was there, we had a Halloween party at the baseball house, and it was like a public invite on Facebook, and the cops showed up costume. So the cops were there in costume, taking pictures of like guys selling cups for the keg and all this.
Oh, shoot.
Like, the guys that lived there all got bootlegging tickets because of like, we were also ignorant to Facebook at that
Sure.
time. And like 3 of those guys were on the baseball team and actually got suspended for a couple of games for bootlegging because the cops like were there undercover taking pictures and we all thought they were college kids.
Sure. What does a bootlegging ticket look like?
You know, I don't know. I think it's like $1,000 fine.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Thankfully I didn't get busted with it, but I was there. Like I remember that night and it was some of my buddies, but I'm pretty sure it was like, I don't know, $1,000, $2,000 fine. And it's on your record for a while.
I didn't know you could get in trouble for that. I mean, that was definitely a problem. Like people started making private Facebook events, I suppose, but like, I mean, selling the cup, that's as old as time.
Yeah,
Right.
That was a thing.
Exactly.
Do you know if they're UNI police or just like the Cedar Falls police?
I think they were Cedar Falls police. I think they were.
Okay. I don't know did you have a lot of troubles, Bryce, with cops or not? Like busting parties?
Yes, I feel like the big ones always did. You know, there was a thing that kind of got big when we were in school called pro days, opening days. People would wear their jersey, go out to a house. Somebody would buy like 6 kegs or do like the big dump the vodka into make the jungle juice thing. When they was at somebody's house, they always got busted. But then they started being smart, doing it at the bar. The bar got a cut of it and obviously had the liquor license and everything. But oh yeah, there was always a few that, you know, people were pretty stupid and just invited the whole class of 2020.
Right.
2014, I guess back then.
Kids be a little bit though, right?
Right.
All right. Well, moving on from the college days and your post-baseball career, you get this idea, and there might be some years in between, of course. You get this idea a couple of years ago. You're like, I want to start a podcast called the Moonlight Graham, which is based off the movie The Field of Dreams. And before we get farther into that, I need to ask for your forgiveness. I've never seen The Field of Dreams.
Come on, Nate.
And I know that hurts you. I know that you get emotional towards the end. Because of you, I've gone on the end and watched the clip where he plays catch with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
Cool moment, but I've just never watched all the way through.
It'll choke you up. And
put it on the list. Put it on the list. I'm not gonna crucify you for not watching it, but you need to watch it.
For sure.
Especially as an Iowan, I would take that. But you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about what the Moonlight Podcast is and how it started?
Before we get into that, can I please apologize? I did expect like a 75, 80-year-old man when you hopped on this podcast. Not when you hopped on. I did a little bit of research beforehand, but I'm like, when he first said, hey, Moonlight Graham's going to hop on, I'm like, no way. That's going to be sweet.
Isn't that guy dead?
It's just him. That's cool.
Yeah. So, 4 years ago, I started that podcast like in November of, 2016 now. So at that time, like podcasts were still relatively new. You know, right now, you guys know this, everybody's got a podcast right now, right? Yep. It's kind of a flooded marketplace and there's a lot of competition. And we were talking even before we started recording here of like how you cut through the crap, how you have good interviews and all that stuff. That's not the same as 10 other podcasts. And so you guys get that part. But 4 years ago, nobody was doing this, right? Nobody was doing it. So I'm driving around, listening to all these sports talk radio shows. And I'm a huge like Dan Patrick fan. Jim Roden show is a lot of fun. But if you listen all day to like Mike and Mike in the morning, then Levitard and DP and all this stuff, it'll be the same guests on over and over again, promoting the same things over and over again, and you get tired of it.
Right.
So
it's like watching Sports Center 10 times over.
I want to have a podcast like with the guys that aren't being interviewed, right? Let's talk to the guys on the end of the bench. Let's talk to the guys that were famous 5 years ago and now are selling insurance, right? I want to talk to those guys, hear their stories instead of like the same quarterbacks and the same starting pitchers every year. And that was the idea. And then Moonlight Graham, connection to Dyersville, connections to Iowa. My parents lived in Dyersville when they got married. My older brother was born there. Always have loved the movie. So that, the story of Moonlight Graham is similar to the type of people that we want to have on the show, right? The people that might have had a cup of coffee in the major leagues or played on the practice squad for the Packers one time, like Dominique Daphne. I don't know if you guys recognize that name, but
touchdown the other night.
Kid just caught a touchdown pass for the Packers last week. Like we want to own those type of people. We want those guys to be moonlighters, right? We want to be the home and the podcast that people go to listen to those type of stories.
I love it.
Cool.
Absolutely. I just started. I mean, full disclosure, I didn't know who we were going to get on the show tonight, and Nate sent me a couple of the episodes, so I'm very new to the show, but I love the background, and I just started the top 100 athletes, which I think Nate was hoping to get into right after this, but definitely excited to listen to a little bit more of your show. It sounds like you've got the right idea there, because we were just talking, like you said before the show, that we had Luka Garza on last week, and how many times has he been asked the same exact questions that we asked? It's nice to hear from guys that maybe aren't as well known, or, sometimes you find a guy that just has a great personality too, and that makes for a super fun show.
Yeah. Like when we had Kurt Warner on. So Kurt Warner, even though he's a big name, he's got this great underdog story. So we want to tell that. But when you have Kurt Warner on, you were like, he's done 1 billion interviews. How do I get something different out of Kurt Warner than anybody else has had? And so I hope when people go to my podcast, it's like a Moonlight Graham, Kurt Warner interview. It's not just your standard Kurt Warner interview. And so that's what we're trying to do, especially with some of those bigger Iowa names. But it's been fun. We're 4 years in. We've done 186 episodes now. We've done some different things, like the top 100 athletes ever to come out of Iowa. And we're having fun with it. We're trying to be different. We're trying to keep it light, and not just feel like we need to regurgitate a different episode each and every week.
For sure.
Okay. I need to breathe here for a sec. I thought we weren't recording. I was like, holy shit. I'm like,
no, it's on. It's
on.
I was checking.
I don't know. Zoom up. I don't know if you've ever had those mistakes, but that scared the hell out of me.
Oh yeah.
Tim, I want to talk about how I kind of came across your podcast and why I love it so much. I think it was about 2 years ago, my brother-in-law, who you might know, he played basketball for Algona. I think he graduated in 2004. Shane Tafe. Are you familiar with that name?
Yeah.
That's my brother-in-law.
Algona Public.
Yep. He was he came from Minnesota in like 8th grade. My sister went to Garrigan. He went to Algona. Then he went back to Minnesota for like chiropractic school. But anyways, married to him. They have 4 kids. I babysit him all the time.
I follow Dr. Shane on Twitter.
He's a good follow.
Yeah, he voices his opinion. I think you mentioned he's like one of the Flattery boys out of St. Ez, which is always a comment when you hear the Flattery. I'm like, I was intrigued. I'm like, oh, cool. What are they doing? He's like, they're doing a podcast. I think it was a podcast episode. Maybe Nick Collison was one of your beginning ones. So I'm like, cool. I'll listen to that. About 2 years. I'm like, I kind of like that. I wasn't intrigued by any of the other kind of guests you had. And then when I started working this summer, I'm like, I better start, because like you said, podcasts are just everywhere nowadays. I'm like, I got to find one that I like. I'll give the Moonlight Graham one. It's relevant to me. It's more related to some of the Iowa athletes. And after listening to 3 or 4, you have the best voice ever for it. I'm sure you've been told that 100,000 times. And ever since then, I just loved it. So I think here in a little bit, we're going to talk about some of our favorite podcasts that I've listened to, some of yours.
Well, thanks, Nate. I appreciate you following along and listening. And you know how it goes. You guys have your own podcast, and you're always trying to make it a little bit better each and every week, right? And part of it, starting a podcast, it's like you just got to start sometimes. Not everything's going to be perfect, and just like put something out into the world, and then next week, hopefully it's a little bit better. Next week's a little bit better, and also keep your ear to the world, see what else is going on, so you're not doing the same shit as everybody else. But I appreciate you listening, and hopefully we can keep putting out good stuff.
Yeah. So it's funny. So this is the relaunch of our podcast. We actually started our podcast last year. We took a break because I went back to school, finished that, got that out of the way. I messaged Bryce in November or maybe October. I'm like, hey, I feel like we should start this podcast back up. I feel like we have a lot of opportunities, some cool people to talk to. I had 3 people that came to mind: Spencer Lee, Luka Garza, and Tim Flattery. So
yeah, how do I make the cut there? I feel like there's one person that doesn't belong, and it's definitely me.
I'm not sure how it happened, but
top 100 Iowa athletes just was top of mind.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm honored to be here, guys. I'm honored to be here, and I hope I'm not in the same class as an athlete as Spencer Lee and Luka Garza, but hopefully I can give a better interview than those guys.
So far it's flowed a lot better. It's not as rehearsed. I think you're speaking from the true of your heart instead of trying to perform to the media. So let's dive into some of your favorite podcasts, episodes, and guests that you've had on the show.
Well, you brought up Nick Collison earlier, right? That was like our first one that kind of popped a little bit, and we got some real traction. We picked up a lot of like subscribers and followers and reviews from that. So that one was the first one. When we started the podcast, we thought if we could ever have a guy like Nick Collison on, we've made it type of thing. And obviously, you know, that's not really the case. It takes a lot
Right.
more work than just having like one good guest on. I'd say one of my favorite ones we've ever done, though, was when the United States at the last Winter Olympics won the gold medal in curling. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was like a big underdog story of the United States curling team was this group of guys out of Minnesota, and they were like the last ranked team in the curling tournament, and they just got hot. And like in the middle of the night, they won like the quarterfinals, semifinals, and gold medal, all from like comeback victories. And it was a big deal. It was a big deal at the Winter Olympics. Well, the guy who was the captain of that team is from Chisholm, Minnesota, the home of Moonlight Graham. So my Twitter is blowing up with like, this guy's from the same town as Moonlight Graham. You got to get him on the show. And so I send a random email at like 4 a.m. to this guy. He responds to it as he's on the flight back to America after winning the gold medal game. And I interviewed that guy, his name's John Schuster, while he was in the green room ready to go on Jimmy Fallon. Before he went on Jimmy Fallon, he talked to us on the Moonlight Graham show to talk about winning the gold medal. And that was just really cool. And then so I sent these shirts to him and his teammates, and they wore them at the ESPY Awards that next year.
That's
Like,
sweet. That's way cool.
Happy hour or whatever before they put on their tuxedos. They took a team picture in our Moonlight Graham shirts at the ESPYs.
That's
And
sweet.
like, I didn't ask him to do it. They just like did it as a team, and that was really cool.
Yeah,
That's
awesome.
sweet. I mean, that's couldn't be more perfect with where he's from, and then the type of guy. I mean, even the sport in general. Like I hadn't heard of that story, but
Right.
just perfect. That's awesome.
And it sounds like
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like the only reason we got him on the show was because of our podcast name. He said like, dude, I'm getting a billion media requests right now. The only reason I'm doing your show is because you're Moonlight Graham, the podcast name. You know, like we just got really lucky, and things like that make having a podcast worth it. So that was fun.
Yeah, it's always cool kind of connecting with those guys. I noticed that the next morning after we had Garza, he was on Good Morning America.
You're right.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, get on our platform, get on Good Morning America. But we've been kind of fortunate with our podcast just because we already had our platform built a couple thousand people. Like, okay, we have this podcast idea, let's do it, and then we're able to leverage that with our following. So we haven't quite gone from the grounds, kind of like you. So I respect that. You know, that's quite a grind. Like you said, starting 4 years ago when podcasts weren't really a thing. I wasn't even listening to them until kind of this year when nowadays you look around, everybody has a flipping podcast.
Right.
But any other guests? I have like 4 or 5 of my favorite guests that have been on your show. You only have.
Well, there's a lot of favorites. You know, some personal favorites. We played that game at the Field of Dreams. I don't know if you've listened to that episode, but there was a group of guys from Ireland, Scotland, and England that came over to America to play at the Field of Dreams for a week. They rented it out for a week, and they were looking for games, and I found them on Twitter for whatever reason. And I'm like, hey, if you're still looking for a game, we'll play you. And so I got a team together. It was 13 Flatteries, and we played.
That's what I've been telling you about, Bryce.
These guys from England, Ireland, and Scotland under the lights at the Field of Dreams. And then we did a podcast episode about it. So that was like a personal favorite. You know, having guys like Kurt Warner, you know, some of these Iowa legends are so much fun. Dan Gable was like, I was sweating buckets while I interviewed that guy. So those are always special. But the ones that have a personal meaning, like those are the ones that you remember. So like we're on video right now. This is me and my
Oh, that's sweet.
I've seen that pic.
Dreams after the game. And like those are the type of things that if I didn't have a podcast, we would never have had that experience. And we'll remember that for the rest of our lives, you know?
Yeah, it's cool. Hey, are you able to show us around your little studio real quick?
Where are you at right now?
Yeah, this is a spare bedroom at my house. And
Cool.
I got
Where I'm at.
Field of Dreams right there. I had Dwyer Brown on right there.
Oh yeah, there he is. That's Dad,
He
right?
played, it was the father in the movie Field of
Yeah.
Dreams. So it's just a bunch of crap, you know, that normally gets thrown away, but I got hanging up on the wall. I make sure to have everybody here sign the door when they come in. So we got like, you know, like Nick Collison is up here. If you can't see it right there, he's got like Gales, Cadets, Jayhawks.
You fit through that door?
Bobby Hansen signed that wall. We've had, that door has like Olympic gold medalists, NBA champions, World Series champions, Super Bowl champions, have all signed this crappy door in my house now. And that's a lot of fun. I try to invite as many people in here as possible.
Sure.
Cool. You got to remember the history. I want to dive into some of my favorite guests I've been on your show. I want to start off with I want to say it's my personal favorite one, but one of the more intriguing ones was when your wife put you in the hot seat. Things were flipped around. You were being interviewed for the first time. I thought that was just interesting to kind of dive in. We always hear about you interviewing everybody else's history. This episode focused more about what we're kind of doing right now with you.
Yeah. It's every now and again, it's fun to get personal, right? And so for that one, a week before I got married, my wife interviewed me and we talked about like what we were nervous about before marriage, along with like she could ask me anything she wanted. Last time before you got to get to know everybody, or you got to get to know me at every level if you're going to marry me. So you can ask me anything right here on air. We did the same thing. Like I just had a baby, or my wife just had a baby, and had some my co-host and my brother on talking about how to be a good dad. And so some of those topics which tie into the Field of Dreams, which is such a good father and son story, we try to do topics like that connect with, our audience. Our target market is guys that are mostly, my age, 35 years old. They're married, they're starting a family. And so we're trying to connect with some of that as well.
For sure. Yeah. You mind me asking what the hot question was, Nate? I'll have to listen to it myself, but just give me a brief rundown.
What I just asked him?
Yeah.
What was
the best part of that episode?
Just hear more about his story for the first time. Like you hear about all these other guys' story, and just because I'm very familiar with the name Flattery, so because of your name is the reason why I listen to the podcast. St. Ed's and Garrigan have always been rivalries back in school. I used to date a girl from St. Ed's. Yep, we won't get into that, but she's history.
Talk about host on the hot seat.
Yeah.
But anyways, she talked about how them two met. You apparently in the first day you're just kind of talking about your podcast, so that shows that you're very passionate about your podcast, which is funny. And then she just went through basically throughout his career, just as we have, and it was cool.
Gotcha. So just life stuff. I was thinking that there might have been some like hot button issues hit right before wedding day, but
cool. No, there was nothing too controversial. But we're just in love, Bryce. We're in love.
Fair enough, man. I don't know if I'd have the wits to do that myself, or maybe the stones.
Oh God, I want to give anyone the opportunity to dive into my past. It could be tough. So credit to you for doing that. Yeah. Moving on from that, some of my favorite. I'm a huge Hawkeye fan. I enjoyed like Adam Haluska, Jeff Horner, Greg Bruner, Jack Brownlee, of course, the St. Ed's point guard. Kind of hearing about their stories playing for Coach Steve Alford. And then my last favorite one I kind of want to touch up on was like was it a Techno Bowl?
Techno Bowl, yeah.
You weren't played at this little tournament. And I thought it was kind of cool how you just interviewed these random guys who would probably never expect to interview in their entire life talking about a Techno Bowl game.
So I'm in West Des Moines. There's a bar called the Keg Stand a half a mile away from me right now. And these guys, they're all like 40 years old and kind of dorky, like geeky, classic, like gamer, live in their parents' basement type of guys. And they're having this Tecmo Super Bowl tournament half a mile away. And I'm like, I got to go. Like, I love that game growing up. And to your point, or what you said, Nate, I would just interview these guys. And a lot of those guys have like world records. They're like in the Guinness Book of World Records for like Sega Hockey 94. Or like, this guy's got the Zelda record. This guy's got the Mario 3 record. And it was just a blast, like getting into their world someday. But let me tell you, that bar smelled so much like BO by the end of the day. Like these guys were like showing up in pajama pants, and they're not like 19-year-old kids. They're like 45-year-old dudes, And that was a blast though, because I really enjoyed it. And I kind of nerd out on that stuff too. But you brought up those Hawkeye players, the Haluska, Horner, Bruner, like that was such a good class of Hawkeyes, and they're all really good guys. They're all really good interviews too. So I'm not a Hawkeye fan myself, but that group of guys is really cool, and I enjoyed every one of those interviews.
Yeah. During those podcasts, you couldn't even almost tell that you're an Iowa State fan. So those are definitely one of the better ones. They just have a cool, unique history, especially if like kind of growing up with Jack, because Jack's alongside with them because he played back in the AAU days with them.
Right.
Probably
Horner, we did that top 100 athletes, and Horner still gives me crap because we didn't put him on the list. And so he's really mad that like Jeff Horner didn't make the top 100 athletes list and Adam Haluska did. And I think we might have had Greg Bruner on there as well. And Horner's still pissed about that.
Okay. That's the next topic we're going to get into is the top 100 athlete. Tell us a little bit about this podcast and title of it.
Yeah, that was a 5-part series we did. So we released 5 episodes, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of a week, counting down, 20 guys each day. And basically what we did was we tried to look at who are the athletes that have made the top level of all the major sports and the Olympics that were born and raised, or didn't necessarily have to be born in Iowa, but raised in Iowa. And it was tough. It's ranking them. I had never seen anybody do it before. I was like, we should do this. And then it can be our thing because nobody else on it. It created a lot of controversy.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Too. I specifically ranked Niall Kinnick maybe a little bit lower than he should have been just to piss some Hawkeye fans off. And I enjoyed that.
Negative publicity, good publicity. But you brought up a good point. I listened just to the first little bit before I hopped in the car and got to this little booth I'm in. But there's so many, like with wrestlers, there's so many good wrestlers. And just because you win state championships, just because you perform at a high level, we've got guys that have been, for decades that have been performing at a high level playing, Olympic qualifiers. So, that had to have been very difficult.
How long did it take?
How long did it take?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious.
A while. I probably did a month of research on it before I did it. But you guys know this, you guys wouldn't be doing this if you didn't enjoy it, right? And so some of these things, it's I'm going to be looking up who I think are the top 100 athletes anyway. And I just want to do a podcast on it. This is the stuff I'm interested in anyway. So it didn't feel like it was extra work. It was just fun. And we've done that same thing where we ranked all the top baseball players, basketball players, football players out of the state of Iowa as well. And that's just fun for me to do and to talk about with my friends. So why not make a podcast about it? That's kind of the idea.
What was your top 5? If you remember.
Athletes?
Yeah.
Well, I had Bob Feller number 1. And it really came down to Bob Feller or Dan Gable. And really, I think it's Feller because of World War II, right? If World War II doesn't exist, Feller's numbers are insane, right? He's the greatest right-handed pitcher of all time. And I'm ranking baseball slightly ahead of wrestling and just level of athleticism. And especially Gable was so good in college. He won the Olympic gold medal, but then he was done at 24 years old, right? And he tried to come back and wrestle for the next Olympics and he got beat. And that's what, nobody ever talks about that, right? And so I think that's what put Feller above Gable for me. The other guys in the top 5, I don't remember the order exactly, but it was Sean Johnson, Kurt Warner, and Sean Johnson, Kurt Warner, and maybe Bryce Pop was up there. Bryce Pop won the NFL Defensive Player of the Year and had
UNI guy.
Yeah, UNI guy had 80 career sacks in the NFL.
I'm actually named after him.
You are?
Yeah, my parents were big fans. I think they went to school when he was there.
Yeah, I know Bryce Pop was in our top 10 there. Zach Johnson was up in the top 10. Joey Woody was up there, current baseball coach or track coach at Iowa. So, yeah, the top 15 or 20 was everybody you've heard about, your Tim Dwights, your Dallas Clarks, your Nick Collisons.
Right.
The hardest part was how do you rank 40 through 100? Right? Where do you put Alan Lazard? Where do you put Rico Gafford?
Yeah, guys that have an unwritten story or,
Right.
Sure.
How do you rank female Olympians? How do you compare men and women? That. Those were tough things to answer.
Totally.
I'm just a little upset Brad Nelson didn't make the list.
Yeah, he was in my honorable mention. Actually, now that I think about it, I think Lolo Jones might have been in our. She was in our top 10 as well. Speaking of,
makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, Tim. Before we move on to the next subject, which we're going to talk about your perspective on state of that collegiate athletes or the season going for Iowa State, Drake basketball, football season as well. I reached out to one of your cousins, shout out to Dave Flattery, and he says that you may have the best Rudy Whitaker impersonation. And we need to see us to clarify it.
Okay. So this is something that I'll tell you the backstory on this. I would do the Rudy speech all the time, like at my family talent show. Every Christmas, my family would have this talent show. And you'd have to get up and you'd have to sing a song. You'd have to do something because my grandma really liked it.
Yeah.
And my like easy way out was I would just do the Rudy speech. And I don't know if I'm even good at it, but it was just what I would do every year. And so I'll give it to you. You know, it's your podcast. You guys want ratings right now. I'll give it to you, right? And I got my Notre Dame jersey right here. Got my Notre Dame.
There you go.
Irish Catholic guy myself, so you know I love the Irish. But we're going to run them inside. We're going to run them outside. Inside, outside. We're going to get them on the run, boys. And when we get them on the run, we're going to keep them on the run. We're going to go, 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 go. And we're not going to stop until we get across that goal line. See, this is a team that they say is good, but I think we're better than them. They can't lick us. So what do you say, men?
That's incredible.
Love it.
Yeah, I don't think that was just a family talent show. I think that's actually a legitimate skill.
Well, thank you. I haven't done that in about 3 years, so you guys are seeing it for the first time in a while.
So you are actually a Notre Dame fan as well? Sorry about last week.
It like happens at baptism, right? You get baptized Catholic, you get your Golden Dome replica helmet.
For sure. Yeah, my dad always had a little soft spot. We grew up Catholic, and for no good reason. No one went there or anything, but we're always rooting for the Irish for sure.
Yeah.
Tough game last week.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just not do the playoff anymore. Let's just stick to the regular season.
And I'm waiting for them to compete when they do the college football playoff, but I have to wait another year, I suppose.
Right.
What's your prediction on Saturday or Monday?
You know, I think Bama. I think Bama's got more guys than everybody, and I think Saban is an awesome coach. But you look at the talent that's come through there. The NFL is like 30% ex-Bama guys.
Yeah, it's deep.
You know,
every
it's
year.
just insane. So I'd say Bama by 7+.
I'm just a little surprised by what Ohio State did to Clemson. Obviously, we got a short season from Ohio State, but I would probably agree with you there.
Yeah, and who knows? I'm not going to bet against Saban anytime soon.
All right, before I miss the topic, before we get into the college here, Field of Dreams is supposed to have a baseball game. Was it in August?
Yep.
Got postponed due to COVID, and now I'm not sure when it's been rescheduled or how's that looking. Do you know any more details on that?
You know, I just know what's been posted publicly, and so it's on again for this August with the White Sox, or excuse me, I think it's the White Sox Cardinals now.
Yeah, it was going to be Yankees, right? Kind of like
What?
It was going to be White Sox Yankees at one point.
Yeah, I think it was White Sox Yankees last year, which was perfect. And I'm pretty sure the Cardinals are involved this year and not the Yankees. I could be wrong on that, but they're bringing it back. Like, it's going to be cool. I think they're really going to do a good job, and it's probably better for Dyersville that they had an extra year to prepare. Like, there's probably a lot of kinks that they needed to work out with that stadium. My biggest concern was, like, can you build a field in a year and make it major league worthy, right? Like, now the field has been there. It's been played on a little bit. The mound has been played on, and all that stuff I think is necessary because major league players know the difference between a brand new field and something like Yankee Stadium or Target Field or something, or Wrigley. You know, they can tell the difference in all that little stuff that like the amateurs can't. And so I think that is important to make sure it is right so that next year and the year after that, they come back to Iowa and it's not just a one-time thing.
Right. So if you're going to do it, you got to do it right the first time, obviously.
Yeah, because the
one bad experience, you're like, screw this, man, we're out.
The word is that they want a 3-year deal on it. And that's the word is if it goes well the first year, they're going to be back. And that would be really cool for Iowa.
Yeah, that'd be huge for that area and Iowa as a whole.
The big question about this event is not the game, but who's going to be throwing the first pitch this game? Who's going to be an MVP? It's got to be the Moonlight Graham host, Tim Flattery. What kind of privileges should you be deserving of this game?
Nate, I'm just trying to get on the grounds crew. And I've asked some people that I think have connections. I'm like, just make me one of those guys that drags the rake in between innings, you know,
right.
Drags the infield. You know, I can be an extra guy doing that, right? I got the talent.
That'd be sweet. That'd be awesome.
I think the first pitch has to be Kevin Costner. I think it just has to be.
I don't know. I would love to see you. I think you're deserving more than anyone else.
I throw harder than Cosner, but I definitely do not have the fanfare that Kevin Costner would bring, especially with like Yellowstone being huge. Like if Kevin Costner shows up like with a cowboy hat on and throws out the first pitch, you know,
That's tough to beat.
Center.
Big for Iowa.
All right, we're going to move this to college athletics here in the state of Iowa. It's been kind of a hot season besides Iowa State basketball and UNI basketball. Let's go ahead and start off first off the football season. Iowa finished 6-2. The last 2 games kind of got canceled out due to COVID reasons. The first 8 games were played, obviously, which you can't almost argue with the amount of games you got to play this year. If you got to play at least everything that was laid upon you during the schedule, you should be almost thankful. And Iowa State had its biggest season in football history, with its capping off with the biggest bowl win. What are your thoughts on this season? You're an Iowa State fan, right?
I'm a Cyclone fan for sure.
How are you feeling?
You know, I feel great. I think the one hang up is that Louisiana Lafayette game, right? Like there's no reason they should lose that game. And they got smoked. Like it was not close. They got smoked in that game. And so that's just where I'm at as a fan right now. Is it kind of sucks that Iowa State had the best year in school history. They win the Fiesta Bowl, and yet Hawkeye fans can still say, yeah, but you lost to Louisiana Lafayette and you had 3 losses. Like, are you serious? And so it sucks as a Cyclone fan that Hawk fans still have that upper hand where Iowa State didn't go like 11-1 or have an undefeated year. You know what I mean? And Iowa had those seasons. So even Iowa State's best season is still not quite to the level that Iowa's been at. But the fact that Iowa State won a Fiesta Bowl and everybody's coming back, like you guys see it on Twitter, Hawks are scared right now.
I'm scared.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, kudos to the fortitude of both teams. That Iowa loses to a Northwestern team who ends up being very good.
Right.
Purdue, you see the Louisiana Lafayette game. So kudos to the fortitude of both those teams, looking like, okay, this is going to be another year where 8-4 Hawks and 6-6, 7-5 Cyclones. I mean, I think that couldn't have ended better based on how things were looking at one point.
Yeah, and I think you got to give it to. I love Kirk Ferentz, and I'm not a Hawkeye fan. But what he gets out of those guys, and like by the end of the year, they run the ball and they don't give up any yards. I mean, like you couldn't move the ball on Iowa's defense the second half of the year. And it's just amazing how much better Iowa got as the year went on. You could say the same thing about Iowa State.
For sure.
And so all I wanted this year was like an Iowa State bowl matchup. Now, Iowa State lucked out and got in the Fiesta Bowl, but how much fun would it have been to have a good Iowa State team against a good Iowa team in a bowl game? Where
late in the year,
State fans would have traveled to it too if they were fans. That would have been a lot of fun. I wish we had that this year.
I know. I would have been so fucking sick that week. I'm a wreck every Cyhawk week. I just get so nervous about that.
I'm old enough now where I'm far enough away from it where I don't get as invested anymore, and I can I don't sweat it out as much. I just kind of watch the world implode on Twitter and enjoy it instead of like getting so ticked off about everything. But 5 years ago, I was like losing sleep over the trolls on Twitter.
Well, I mean, the real battle is won on social media. That the hype.
It is.
I mean, that's the fun part of it.
I mean, you want
every time Iowa State loses, all my Hawkeye friends send me a GIF of Ronald McDonald playing like the guitar. And it's just every time. And I don't know. That's like the beauty of the Cyhawk.
I know. You just got to take the shit. And that's just
right. You just take
part of it.
It's all part. Yeah. All comes with the rivalry. All right. And then we'll move, obviously the Missouri Valley Conference. Are they still I think they're planning on playing in the spring. Do you know anything about that? Is that still happening?
Yeah. They're playing, I think maybe a 6 or 8 game schedule in the spring.
That's right, because our good buddy Zach Kibbe, who is a moonlighter,
that's right.
Will be punting for the Northern Iowa Panthers. I think he's still they're always throwing him away. I mean, around the roster to see where that guy best fits. But we'll keep an eye on that. Kind of a hot basketball season starting for Drake basketball in Iowa. What's it like for you, kind of to witness that from Iowa State perspective, and then trying to avoid Iowa State basketball as it goes on?
Well, it's cool being here in Des Moines and seeing Drake be good, right? And it's fun because you can get to a Drake game, you can go to the Knapp Center, And Des Moines loves its hoops. And for Drake to be good and be right here at the center of the town, it makes it a lot of fun. So with DeVries, DeVries is doing a great job. But it wasn't too long ago, like back in '08, when Adam Emenecker and Clayton Corver and those guys were on the team, like everybody, especially in Des Moines, rallied around that team. And you're seeing the same thing happen with Drake basketball this year. And it's a lot of fun. This town's alive with Drake basketball. I think that's awesome. But the question is like, is DeVries going to be at Drake long-term? His kid is coming there next year. Or is he going to end up at Iowa State, or is he going to jump ship to a bigger program, or is he going to stick around and try to build something at Drake? I think that's the big question. Iowa State basketball, my theory on that right now is they've had so many departures over the last couple of years. They're not like a blue blood type program where they can just reload every year. But when you lose Halliburton, Taylor Horton Tucker, Wigington, Cam Lard, all those guys left early within a 2-year span, even though they're recruiting 5-star guys like Foster, they're getting some good recruits in. They're trying to play patchwork with some of these senior transfers that didn't work out. And like, there's only so much you can do. Like, it's not a KU type program.
Right.
And the question is, does the fan base have the patience to stick around with Prome? I like Prome, but like, how many years at the bottom of the Big 12 can the fan base take?
Right.
Look at Iowa right now. The best thing about Iowa is all these guys are seniors.
That's the main talking point that I was going to say too. It's like, we did touch on it with Peter Jock and Luca the last couple of weeks, and that is what they both said. The leadership circle has been tight, and it's just been passed down, and that's something that Iowa State has not been able to benefit from. But I did cut you off. I apologize about that.
No, you're right on. And like with Iowa State, they have their only senior guys are transfers that have been there for 6 months and had no offseason with the team. And then they have all these young guys that have never done it. How do you expect that team to be any good when they have no offseason? It's impossible. It's impossible, especially playing in the Big 12. Iowa's like 12 deep, right? Iowa's got like Tyler Eulis and Foster and Patrick McCaffrey. These are all like 4 or 5-star recruits. They're like the 9th and 10th guys on the team right now.
Right.
Because got like a bunch of guys in their mid-20s that are still starting for him, and that's the difference with college sports. Like Jordan Bohannon,
he's collecting retirement.
Yeah, he could play back next year. Luka Garza is like, it's a mismatch. There's nobody in the country that can match up with Luka Garza. He just needs to be in the NBA or overseas making a couple million a year, right? You don't see guys like that in college anymore. And Iowa State hasn't had that, since Niang, Matt Thomas,
right,
and the crew came through, and that's why they were good, because they stuck around.
Right. Do you think Luka Garza is the best player in the country?
Oh, hell yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't stand the Hawkeyes, but like, watch a game. He's unbelievable.
Automatic.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and he's just all business too. I did a little bit of research. Nate was sending me videos before last week's interview and tried to get a little bit more inside look at this guy. And he lives and breathes basketball. This guy is so committed, and it shows on the court. He doesn't make a mistake. He does exactly. I mean, he's a coach's dream, doing everything you want, hustle plays, but then every fundamental. I mean, he's lights out. Yeah,
and the way he gets positioning down low, and not many teams have guys that are 7 feet, 280 pounds that can guard him anymore. And so He buries these undersized centers underneath the hoop, and there's nothing they can do about him. He can score like 14 points in 3 minutes on just 7 straight possessions. And he does that all the time.
Yeah, Iowa State learned the hard way from that one.
Yeah.
Hit like 5 threes in a row. All right, well, Bryce, I think we're going to move to the cookie saucy question. I have an option for the cookie saucy question, unless if you want to use the one that you want to use.
Okay, I've got one. Let's do 2. We might as well. We've got a longer episode. We might as well just keep it going. But we want to thank our sponsor, Cookies Barbecue, getting in early and often with us this year with the relaunch of the podcast. The first cookie saucy question of the week. Nate, you want to start it, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Tim, what does it mean to be Iowan to you, or grow up in Iowa?
Man, these are hard hitting. When you grow up in Iowa, you have like a blue collar mentality about you. And so I sound like a cliche athlete when I said that. I'm catching myself. But growing up in Iowa, it's like the things that are traditional and the things that like the way things used to be are kind of still true here in Iowa. Like we still have family values here. We still have work ethic here. We still have all these things that are like kind of American characteristics. I think all of those things are still true in Iowa. And what I like about Iowa is we are like a purple state in politics, and there's a lot of different opinions here. Even though we're in the middle of the country, we're a flyover state. There's still a lot of like innovation that happens here. There's still a lot of diversity here. There's a lot of diversity of opinion. And I think that like people on the coast don't get that, right? They think they don't really understand Iowa. And so when you grow up here in Iowa and you understand like how well balanced this state is, how well rounded this state is, I'm really proud of all of that. And that's why like I'll never leave Iowa, is because I think it's just a special place where a lot of the other parts of this country have become so polarized for a bunch of different reasons. And I feel like Iowans are really grounded in our values and our ethics. So that's when you talk about being from Iowa, I think that's what it means to me, because, and it all comes back to like farming, right? Because we work the land and we grew up on the land, and like you all know some people, your family's probably farmed at one time, maybe owned a farm for over 100 years. And so like the 4 seasons of life and all of that stuff, it really just balances you. And so you have a lot of like well-balanced, good people in the state of Iowa that I don't think the rest of the country sees that, especially on the coast. And so that's what I love about our state.
I love that answer.
Emphasis on the 4 seasons really does balance you.
Except in Cedar Rapids, right?
Yeah, that one extra for sure.
City of 5 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the fun part about kind of doing what we do, is just like, Nate's been very good about getting excited about the little things, and it's been fun to be a part of it for the last few years and just really, embrace like the simple but the good that's about this state. And I love that answer. And since we've talked baseball, and since you've got a good baseball past and you've given us your nice answer, I got a little bit of a spicy one for you. If you were in an open field with a baseball bat and a group of thousands of 10-year-olds were coming at you, how many could you take down before they took you down?
This is dark, man. That is a dark question. 10-year-olds are kind of scrappy,
Yep.
And so say I got a baseball bat and 10-year-olds, man, I think I probably could take like 25 of them down. I think I could probably get 25 of them down before they
That's fair.
be like, there's some tough 10-year-olds, you know what I mean?
For sure. You're learning how to scrap at that point.
Once they get behind me, and once I got guys like from every one of my flanks, I'm dead, right? And once they take away my legs, then I only got so many swings left. But I think I could probably get, 20 to 25 before that happens.
That's fair. I don't think you'll ever be faced with that. So we'll take your word for it.
And I do got to say, I love that your guys' sponsor is Cookies barbecue sauce. Like I grew up on Cookies barbecue sauce. It's the barbecue sauce that America loves to eat. And when I saw that it was your guys' sponsor, I was just like, how perfect is it that Iowa Chill, like you guys do the Midwestern thing really, really well. And Cookies is like the ultimate Iowa, barbecue sauce. If you're from Iowa, Cookies.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, they're awesome. They make a good sauce, and they're good people.
Well, Tim, we appreciate you for hopping on the podcast. Like I said, we're big fans of the Moonlight Graham show. Where can we find your social media accounts at?
Yeah, we're on, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Moon Graham Show on Twitter, Moonlight Graham Show on Instagram. Obviously, you can find us on the Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, and all that stuff as well. But appreciate you guys having me on. I'm a fan of your guys as well. Been following all your stuff for a long time. Excited to see what this next relaunch of the Iowa Chill Show has in store. So thanks for having me on, fellas.
Yeah, it's good to meet you. Good luck with everything.
Appreciate you for hopping on, and best of luck this season. And congratulations to being a father as well. And best
Thanks,
of luck.
Fellas.